You're good.
All right, we're good now. All right, so like Gina said, we're out of Lubbock, Texas, but we're the West Texas District Office. We cover 71 counties from out of the Lubbock office, but we cover Amarillo all the way down to far southeast on our district would be Abilene, Taylor County, all the way over just to Monahans, and then all the way up to the New Mexico and Oklahoma borders. So just an overview of our programs and services, of course, lending is one of them, contracting, and counseling and educational. That's kind of where we're at today, and disaster recovery. So anyone that received a PPP or COVID auto loan or something like that, that's in our wheelhouse. So we worked all those kind of things. That being said, like Gina said, we work with our SBDCs. They provide regional coverage for parts of our district. And Gina's the director up there, regional director in Amarillo. So some of this stuff we're covering, we hope that you follow up with the SBDC counselors there and anyone that in your region or near you. And so SBDCs are a nationwide program and our number one resource partners for West Texas for sure for counseling services. The slide presentation that I'm going to use today, like Gina said, Calvin and I, Davis, you'll see there, he's our district director. He graduated law school back in '85 and started this. And I've been with the agency 18 years, been here about 8. And so we present this together most of the time. So you'll see my name there, Matt Jock. And so Calvin's the creator. I've edited it and presented it many times with and without him. So that's what you're seeing there. All right. This presentation is intended for educational purposes. We give a disclaimer. It's not legal advice. If you choose to create a formation on your own, you can't go in there and say, well, Matt advised me to do this and Matt advised me at the SBA to do that. You can't lean on us for legal advice in that avenue. We're just going to give you some educational stuff. So we'll think about whatever entity you have, how it's functioning, and any entities you want to create for a new business in 2024 in the future. You'll have these thought processes that we're going to discuss today. But it doesn't substitute for any legal advice. Of course, go see a local attorney or someone that you trust, an attorney you trust to advise you. This is kind of the subject matter we're going to cover today. This is a rundown of most all primary legal entities and some things that are not legal entities, but people, they'll need to be in place. So a sole proprietor, general partnership, limited liability partnership, a corporation, limited liability company, professional entities, we'll get into that, some compliance rules, and a business plan and operational plans. So if you're looking to start a business and you just want to think what's the simplest, quickest, easiest way to create a business, and it's the most common, is a sole proprietorship. And so you, or if you're married, your partner, you have full control of the sole proprietorship. But as it's in red there, the biggest issue is the sole proprietorship. You have no legal protection from your personal assets. So the business and your personal assets are kind of, you want to say, intermingled or all one. So let's say something happens in a liability purposes and you own personally a piece of property and you're operating your t-shirt business, you think that doesn't have much liability over here, and you decided to create a sole proprietorship to operate your business. If something happened, let's say someone's operating your t-shirt machine and burns their hand and comes with a lawsuit to you, they could also get a judgment against a non-homestead personal property that you might own, because the sole proprietorship is going to open up all your personal assets to the liability of the business. And so how do you create one? You file a DBA, or also known as assumed name statement, with the county where you're located and do the majority of your business. So if you're up in Amarillo and you want to file a DBA, which is it's a good thing to do if you want to start a business and you're not trying to protect personal liability and you're just ready to get started and get rolling, and you need a checking account with a bank. When you go to the bank, they're going to say, hey, where's your assumed name statement? You're going to want to go to the county and file this, and you'll have it and you're good to go. The tax rate, it's going to flow through your taxes. You're on your 1040, you'll still file a 1040. You'll put a Schedule C in there with your business. You get on the IRS webpage, create an EIN number. You file this DBA with the county. and you go open a checking account or with a business checking account using your assumed name certificate, you are a new business and you are ready to start operating. So, and for a lot of people, this works. This works. This is what you want to do. And, you have a side business and you're not worried about protecting personal assets or your liabilities. And this is what you want to do. SBDC, or it can talk you through this process. They even have webinars and things that will teach you how to do this. It's very simple. A general partnership. 2 or more persons carrying on a business for profit. Business is always for profit when it's a business. It's not a nonprofit or some other entity to that form. The issues with general partnership: joint and several liability, generally operate in accordance with partnership agreements. There's no state filing required. That's a question we always ask. Is there a filing required to have a general partnership? No. Is an operating agreement required? No. In Texas, they do require that you file an assumed name with the county. It's required for the banking purposes. Once again, they're going to ask for your assumed name statement, and you're going to need to provide that. Once again, is a partnership agreement required? The answer is no. But when you get into a partnership, the big thing is that for that first little bullet point there, you're joint and several liable. So let's say that t-shirt business I'm talking about, me and my best friend want to open it up. We say, hey, you want to go into this, be a partnership? Sure. We're going to be called, Matt and Tom's t-shirt company, or not a company, Matt and John t-shirt business. We go file our assumed name for our partnership down at the county. We're now a partnership. But is that a good idea? Partnership it's like a marriage in a way. You're in this together. It's all good going in. We're all happy. It's fun. You should create an operating agreement that lets everybody understand how this partnership's working, who's in charge, who's paying the bills. The problem with partnership is joint and several liability when it goes bad. If you don't have an operating agreement, and let's say Tom decides to take all the money out of the account and leave, or Tom decides to buy a new t-shirt business, a t-shirt, machine without my permission. If there's no agreement saying he can't, he's not in violation of the partnership at all. He can basically spend the money as free as I can spend the money. He can move the business as free as the other partner can move the money. And when it all goes bad without an agreement, the state of Texas and the courts will determine how the assets are split up, who was actually in violation, who has to pay what. Where if you have, it would be kind of like a prenup, an operating agreement saying, hey, listen, if Tom decides to move to Dallas, he can't take all the money out of the account. He has to notify his partner, Matt, within 60 days of leaving before he can, leave, and he has to provide, his address, and he has to still support the business, or he has to sell his business if he's not going to live in the same county. All those things that would define how the business operates. An operating agreement is a legal document that binds the two partners. It's an agreement how the business will operate. So if you're going to create a general partnership, by all means, you have to basically have an operation agreement so you can see how it functions and people from the outside can see. Once again, nominal cost, easy, like we said. Tom and I agree we're going to open a t-shirt business. We go down to the county clerk's office. We file our assumed name certificate. It's quick and easy. Banks are going to require to see that the partnership has that to open the account. Once again, we get an EIN number. Same thing. It's all pretty straightforward. The big thing is as we get to other entities, we'll talk more about the partnership. Why would you not want to be in that? Is because of the joint several liability. Sole proprietors and partnerships, just a recap here. You've got to file an assumed name statement, a DBA. These are all different names for it. Downside we talked about. Risk of exposure, no legal protection from personal or business assets. Big suggestion on this one is it says obtain business liability insurance. So we talked about if you're going to be that sole proprietor, if you're going to open that partnership and you're going to have that t-shirt business and you're going to operate just as a sole proprietorship, you may not have a lot of assets for the business, but you can still get liability insurance in case someone gets injured, something happens, someone trips and falls at your business or while you're operating your business. So once again, obtain business liability insurance. It's It's another way to protect your personal assets. Now we're going to get into complex business entities. The first one, limited partnership. This one you do file with the Secretary of State. Requires one general partner who is fully responsible for all the obligations. Requires one limited partner. Often it's an investor or not involved in regular operations. So let's say I came up with the idea of the t-shirt business. I want to make a limited partnership. I want to bring Tom in as a limited partner. He's like, Matt, I don't know anything about t-shirts, but I'm happy to buy in at 30%. We create an operating agreement. So we put that in there that I'll be in the general partner. He's the 30% as an investor. Daily operations will be fully operated by me. Once again, doesn't pay entity taxes, but does file 1165 for each partner, and can flow through to your 1040. So this you're going to file with the Secretary of State. It's the most expensive you can file with the Secretary of State. It's $750. But if you're going to do a partnership, you're going to want to have a limited partnership. You're going to have a general partnership and a limited partner. An operating agreement is going to define the roles. You're registered your LLC with the state of Texas. I mean, your partnership with the state of Texas. You're good to go. This next one is going to show, let's say here, John has 50% ownership and you see all the different people that have bought in. Partnerships or limited partnerships are defined in units. So as you can see here, that they've came up with 1,000 unit system. 500 units are for the general partner here, the 50% owner. And then you can see the rest of them. Now let's see if something goes bad where the company goes under for whatever purposes. The general partner is on the hook for all of it, where the limited partners would only be responsible to the percentage of their partnership. So you can see some benefits of that there. Corporations. We've all heard of corporations. Why do you create a corporation? A corporation is a standalone. It's basically you're creating a whole new entity, a whole new person in a way. Corporation, it protects you from your personal assets. You're legally protected. You have that corporate veil. As long as you operate inside your business, inside that corporation, that personal piece of property you own over there, tractors, equipment that you personally own that's not owned by the corporation, and something goes bad with the corporation, gets debts, a judgment, whatever, it's protecting you from losing personal assets. If you have another business, if you have another corporation, and they operate separate and they all have their own umbrella they're operating under. So maybe you have one business that's killing it over here, one business that's going down. As long as they're operating separately and under their own corporation, you're going to protect the assets of one business from the other business. So corporation, the protection is the main reason you're going to want to create a corporation. Now, we call them complex. It's a little more to it than a partnership, and there's a little more to it than a sole proprietor for sure. You file with the Secretary of State. You have to have a registered agent with the state of Texas. You need to have at least 3 board of directors that governs the corporation. You issue stock. So owners of a corporation, you wouldn't call yourself an owner. You call yourself a stockholder, and you have president and a secretary. And then also you have to have an annual meeting, and you want to keep records of these boards and these meetings and keep minutes. And so once again, you're going to want to create a formation, your operating agreement. The operating agreement is same in the partnership. It's a legal document between the business and the person, if that makes any sense. And so it's a legal document that binds it to it. So if you're going to create a corporation, though, and let's say a lot of people create a corporation, but they're like, I'm the president, I'm the secretary. We don't really meet. We don't really keep the minutes. We don't, so something happens and they come back and someone say at that t-shirt business, you have a booth set up and they trip and fall and the machine falls on somebody and they sue your corporation. And you're like, oh, don't come after my personal assets. I got a corporation. Well, the person that's coming after it's going to say, listen, I've never seen this person have a corporation. Didn't see the information anywhere. The first thing the attorney for the person that's coming after you is going to say, let's see your legal documents. Let's see where you're at. You're like, okay, here you go. Here's the corporation I created 5 years ago. Well, since then you don't have any records of an annual meeting. you hadn't kept the meetings of these board meetings. They're going to say, do you really have a corporation? Because you're not following the bylaws, you're not following your operating agreement. And that's the other thing. If you create an operating agreement, make sure you're following it. You want to be a legit corporation. You want to make sure that you're following the rules that say we are a corporation. So something comes against you, you can't say, well, we are, but are you? Because you haven't been following the rules. And that's the biggest thing I see with someone just going out and creating an entity is follow the rules that you create. So when the time comes, the veil is there and they can't pierce it because the issues you didn't follow the rules of creating your entity. So once you create it, there's maintenance, let's say, to make sure that it stays in place and the veil is covering you. More flexibility on top of corporations. There's no limit to the amount of shareholders you can have. If you're a C Corp versus an S Corp, there's no limit. So you can have many shareholders. There's some benefits to that if you're looking for investors and things like that. Shares of corporation can be sold to anyone, whether a corporation, individual, different entities. Under the tax rules, if you elect to be a C Corp, you are subject to double taxation. So the corporation pays federal taxes on 1120. And then if any shareholder payouts or salaries or dividends that are taken from the shareholders, they would have to report it individually on their 1040. So you'd be taxed at the corporate level, and then you'd also be taxed at an individual level. Sometimes there's benefits to this. Corporate level a lot of times is a lower rate than the personal rate. So if you left money into the corporation and didn't draw on it, the taxation rate would be lower than the personal rate. And we'll look at some charts in a minute. Subchapter S. So when you create this corporation, you can also choose to be an S Corp, and you would choose that. Once again, the owners are still called shareholders. They're protected by their corporate veil. Still the same formalities, just as a C Corp, right? You're still going to have board of directors, a president, a secretary, annual meetings, the whole ordeal. But when you do your IRS and you elect to be an S Corp, that's how you avoid the double taxation. You'd be taxed like a partnership or a sole proprietor, zero taxation at the entity level. All the profits and losses will automatically pass through to the shareholders, and they would report that on their 1040. If you do elect to be an S Corp versus a C Corp, you're limited to 100 shareholders. All shareholders must be U.S. citizens and only allowed one class of stock. The thought process here is if you're electing as an S Corp, everything flows through for your 1040. So they would all need to be U.S. citizens to make sure all the revenue and proceeds get taxed properly. Any questions real quick? Anybody? Anything, Gina?
Haven't seen anything in chat. You all will definitely have Q&A at the end. You're welcome to unmute yourselves.
I got quite a few slides and I'm talking fast too, but feel free to.
Yeah, and we'll make sure there's time at the end as well. But if anybody now, go.
We're going to dive into limited liability company, and this is generally what you see quite a bit created, and you're going to see why here. It's not a partnership, it's not a corporation, it's what we call a hybrid. Provides best of the both worlds. Fewer formalities than a corporation, fewer paperwork than a corporation, but you get the benefits of the veil of a corporation. That's why you see it created often. You see LLC this, LLC that. Owners are called members. So when you fill out your Secretary of State documentation, it's not very difficult. If you're creating one corporation, not operating multiple businesses, you can get on the Secretary website, look at the application, look at the forms, and pretty straightforward. And you'll elect if it's going to be managed or member owned. Most of the time, if you are the owner of it, you're going to be member owned. If you elect to have managers operate the business and run the LLC, you can elect the managers who they'll be. Structure flexibility flows through tax treatment. You like a partnership, sole proprietor, it can flow straight through, or you can be elected to be corp. You file that 8832 with the IRS, you can elect to be taxed at the corporate level, and once again, you'd be subject to the double taxation again. But all your filings are created with the Secretary of State. Pretty straightforward, $300, and you're good to go. And so you can see the benefits of an LLC. It's you don't have to have the annual meetings at the board of directors, but you get the protection of a corporation with the simplicity of a partnership or sole proprietor. A foreign entity, what would we call a foreign entity? It's any entity formed outside of the state of Texas. So let's say you created your corporation in New Mexico. That's where you originally started your business and decided to create it in New Mexico. Now you want to come over to the state of Texas and bring that corporation with you. You can file, you can still be a New Mexico corporation, but then you would just file the paperwork. The Secretary of State would be doing business in the state of Texas. It's a foreign entity, so doesn't mean you're not a foreign company to the United States. A series LLC, we won't get too deep into this, but it's fairly new. As you can see, only recognized in maybe more states since this slide was created: Texas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Nevada. Long story short, you're creating multiple LLCs that are independent. They operate independent of each other. And so a lot of this is used for, if you're flipping houses, you would have an LLC A, B, C, D, E for each property. And let's say something goes bad in one of the other properties, you couldn't go back to the other LLC to B. If C goes bad, you couldn't go back to B and go after the assets or the equity in that LLC. You'd be limited to that series. And why you do that is you're going to create a let's say a mothership LLC that's going to operate all these LLCs, but it's not going to have the assets of each one is separate. So you're going to probably flip number B and you would create another B. And so it keeps you from filing over and over again with the Secretary of State for all these LLCs for a business. You're going to create a series. I'll show you here. It came out. So the series LLC, if you need more information on that, you probably definitely want to see some legal counsel on a series LLC when you set it up. So this slide here is talking about your assumed name as of September 1, 2019. If let's say you're operating as Matt and Tom's LLC, well, that doesn't really tell us what we do. We want to use an AKA, also known as another name. You have to file it. You used to just go down and file it with the county. Now you have to file it with the Secretary of State. So you'd be Matt and Tom LLC doing business as Amarillo's t-shirt business. And so you would file that with the Secretary of State. Then you could use your assumed name. You wouldn't have to operate as Matt and Tom LLC. So if you operate under the LLC name, that's fine. If you just want to be Tom and Matt LLC, but if you want to operate under any other name, you need to file that with the Secretary of State. That's for corporations, LLCs, LLPs. That's kind of a new change. So there are some compliance rules. If you don't comply with that, the state of Texas can put penalties on you. There it is, Secretary of State Form 503. Includes for profit, nonprofit, and you can see all the entities, basically all entities. And yeah, you can select the counties. Most people select all, but let's say you're only doing, northwest part of Texas, the Panhandle area, you might want to elect just the counties up there. It's good for 10 years, $25 fee, pretty easy. Professional entities. So if you're looking to open up a professional corporation you can do a professional corporation, a PLLC, LLP, or professional association. Here's the biggest rules. Must be organized for the only purpose of providing a professional service, and each shareholder must be licensed. So you're talking about attorneys, counselors, psychologists, things like that, where you're all part of the same organization. You're all licensed in the state of Texas, and so you all have to be part of that group. So don't have to file an annual report with the Secretary of State, but subject to franchise taxes. So basically, if you're a professional and you're going to join in with your colleagues in opening a corporation, an LLC, our partnership, you might want to use the professional side. It lets the world know we're all professionals. It lets us know everybody here is licensed professional, especially a PLLP. You're all operating separately in the partnership, and you're only limited to your activities, not the other person that's there. So that's real important when you see a PLLP. The attorney that's operating under a PLLP, they're not liable for somebody else's actions. But so this is a chart from 2021, and I'll actually go to the next one. So it shows corporate tax rate was down to 21%. where personal tax rates are much higher. And so you can see the benefits of leaving money in your corporation only be taxed at corporate level if you elect to be taxed at a C corp rate. So you're looking at 21% probably versus maybe a 33 to 35 to 37% rate. So definitely want to, and we'll get to it, talk to a bookkeeper and accountant. These are some things we throw out there since we're talking about entities and liabilities and things like that. They're not required a lot of times in Texas, but you want to check with Workforce Commission about workers' comp coverage, unemployment insurance, check with your insurance agent. You want to make sure you're covered through insurance for your assets, not just as an entity, as an LLC. Your personal assets are protected, but with these things, you also protect your business assets. You have employees, make sure that you've contacted Social Security, you're withholding those taxes when they need to be withheld and sent in. Once again, Texas Workforce Commission for unemployment insurance. Definitely want to attend those programs and educational classes to learn the benefits of participating with that. IRS compliance, of course, your 1040 individual, you file your Schedule C or your 1120 for your taxes. Quarterly income taxes, you want to make sure you file those. Unemployment, all those kind of things. IRS.gov to get an EIN number. You always hear EIN number. Walks you straight through it. If you ever Google how to get an EIN number, please don't pay somebody or anything like that. Get on the IRS webpage and create it yourself. If you have any issues, reach out to the SBDC. A counselor can talk you through filling out your assumed name, fictitious name documents, and your IRS getting your EIN number literally in less than 30 minutes. And you'll have a temporary EIN number and you're good to go. Texas Secretary of State webpage. This is for all your complex filings in Texas. This is where you're going to go. It's got the forms, nonprofit forms. We don't deal with nonprofits, but if you're looking to start a nonprofit, and you can get quite a bit of information off the Secretary of State webpage to help you through it. Business.gov. This is a page that Calvin Davis, my district director, helped develop, and it's got lots of information on talking you through the filings and those kind of things. So business.gov. Once again, comptrollers, all those things, you want to check with those. Make sure you're following the rules. Make sure you do it right up front. It's a lot easier to do it right up front than trying to correct it later. We put this in here. Partnership agreements and operating agreements, regulations, all those things. You want to make sure they're in order. You want to make sure they're in place. Operating agreements, a document, and let's see if I want to break it down. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and talk about it here. Just in your head, there's different things. Operating agreement, business plan, and your entity filing are all separate. So an entity filing, you're going to file that document with the state of Texas, an LLC perhaps, and you want to make sure you have an operating agreement. That's more complex. It's going to talk about who's in charge, who's making decisions, who's going to access accounts. If we dissolve the business, who's in charge of paying what? Who can purchase? Who can hire and fire? All those things are in your operating agreement. That is not the same thing as your business plan. The operating agreement is the legal document between owner of the business and the actual LLC, the business. A business plan is a plan for the business, right? We are a t-shirt business in Amarillo, Texas. Our primary target is going to be sporting events, high schools only, that have more than 300 students. You want to define your business. So if a banker asks what's your business plan, they want to see your business plan. What is the LLC? What is the Tom and Matt's and Tom's t-shirt business? This is what we're going to do. We're going to make money by selling t-shirts. I used to work for a t-shirt making company, and it defines who I am, what I'm trying to do. It's going to plan for the business on how it's going to succeed and make profit. An operating agreement is how legally it operates between the owners of the business and the actual business. Matt makes the decisions. He's in charge of paying the bills. If it dissolves, he's in charge of making the business gets dissolved and bills get paid. Whereas the entity is just telling the rest of the world, I've created a new entity. It's an LLC. It's a partnership. It's a corporation. So there's three different documents there, three different things. And so a lot of times the bank will ask for an operating agreement, you give them a business plan, or vice versa. So make sure you have both. And once again, a counselor at the SBDC can more than help you talk through a business plan and an operating agreement, refine it and talk about those things. Specific inclusions. We talked about this in the operating agreement. How are things going to be handled? Is it going to be mediation, arbitration first, termination clause? If someone doesn't follow rules, it's the rules of the business. Business liability, also known as general liability. Talk to your insurance agent. Texas trademark, we always throw this in there. You've heard of trademarks, federal trademarks, kind of difficult to obtain, kind of a lot of work to get one, but Texas does have one if you want to get on their Secretary of State webpage. Let's say Matt and Tom's t-shirt business, we make a trademark and we want to protect it because somebody across town sees it and they're like, oh, I can do the same thing. Well, if you don't protect your trademark, like your look, your swoosh, your things like that, it's unique to your business, that identifies your business. If you don't protect that, they can create it. You might not care if someone creates it in New York City, right? Our target audience is Amarillo, but you do care if somebody across town uses your logo, right? So you file that with the Secretary of State. They can help you enforce somebody else stealing your logo and things like that. Much simpler process. $50 per filing on that. Pretty straightforward on that. So we always think that's a neat nuance because people are like, I want to protect my logo. Somebody's stealing it. But the federal one is very complex where you can just protect it locally. And a lot of times business, you're worried about what's happening in your market, not, somewhere else in the country. And we came up with a bail team. Make sure you have a banker that you can work with. They understand what you're trying to do as a business owner, how you're trying to grow, how you're trying to make money, things like that. Have an accountant, bookkeeper. I know when you're first starting and growing, you may be all these, you may be the accountant, but as you grow, you want to keep good books. I've heard people tell these stories about keeping books. They got just so overwhelmed with it. It is a daily thing. If you're operating a business, write down your expenditures, write down your revenue daily. Some people do it weekly, which is fine, but just keep an accountant of what's going on. If it gets complex and you don't understand something, reach out to a local accountant, bookkeeper to help you keep those things organized. That's, to me, one of the biggest things about, you got to see how you're making money, right? So insurance agent, like you said, your entity is going to protect you from your personal assets. It's not going to protect your business assets. You want insurance to protect your business. So find a good insurance agent you can work with. Once again, they understand what you do, what policy you need, things like that. And a lawyer where necessary. As you grow, you'll want to have somebody that understands your business and understands what you're trying to do. There's tons of resources out there, as you all know, but feel free to email me, call me, ask me any questions anytime. Like I said, this is educational purposes. If you just want to talk about it, I'm happy to talk to you all day long about it and see what you're thinking. And if you need to go seek legal counsel, that's fine. Or if you want to do it on your own, seek other counseling services. So that's all I got. Oh, Gina, you wanted me to talk about beneficial.
Oh, you want to go over the BL?
Yeah, let's pull up the webpage. Let's just throw it out there since it's fairly new. Let's see here.
Awesome.
Do you see it?
And I'll drop a link to this.
Do you
Yep, we can see it.
All right. So the beneficial ownership information. So if you want to go to this page, it's got frequently asked questions and it tells you how to file, but we're going to talk about it just a little bit. So if you created an LLC already, a corporation, a partnership, and you have an EIN number and you're operating, as of January 1, 2024, you need to go in and basically report your business. You're going to report it to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. And so it's a beneficial ownership information. It's pretty straightforward: name, address, type of business, things like that. So you want to go in, you're going to register it right here on this e-filing. You have till January 1st, 2025 if you're existing. So that's the big thing. You got a full year to do it, but don't forget to do it, right? And you'll hear more about it as it comes out. You'll probably even receive letters in the mail. This is what they're talking about. You need to go into the, make sure you go to the government webpage where it's a .gov and enter your information. Make sure you're not getting your information stolen. It happens. And so that's where you want to go. If you're a new business, so let's say you decide today to go out and create an LLC when you get off this call today, and you make a new filing, or you have an existing LLC and you want to create another LLC, you go out and create this new LLC. You have 90 days to go do this. So you have 90 days to go in and register it. And then see this right here where it says create a FIN-CEN ID. This is where you can go in and actually register your information. So when you have multiple entities, you can just go in and use your ID number and it'll pull that information in, so you're not constantly filling out this form for multiple entities. There, if you go into how do I file, there's tons of information here if you want to read through it. That it'll let you know if you're exempt, if you're a nonprofit, if you own a bank or an entity that's exempt. You can learn about that. There are third-party service providers that can help you if that's what you need to handle your registration. Go ahead, Gina. You got anything you want to add in there?
I would just agree with you. Make sure you're on that .gov site. We've already seen all that. You mentioned that, the EIN scammers pay us $50 and we'll do this, and they might, but it's free. So don't give anybody else your information.
Yeah, that's always our biggest push. Like LLCs, you're going to see somebody that says, hey, create an LLC for $500. They're not going to do anything besides give you a format. Secretary of State already has a format. So if you don't want legal advice, just pay the $300 at the state of Texas and open a general LLC for the purposes of doing business in the state of Texas, and you're up and running, because that's about all the advice they're going to give you for this $500. They're going to give you a web page that you can read for free out there. Definitely get free services from Gina or myself that will just tell you information. We'll tell you general information. If you're having somebody actually file a complex LLC and doing an operating agreement, you could end up paying $2,000 or $3,000 easily to do all that. But if you're just creating these pages, you see $250 create LLC, they're going to send you the link to the Secretary of State. And they basically took the form off the Secretary of State, and you're going to fill in some blanks, and you're going to pay an extra $250, $300 for no reason. But if you want to see, if you need to create an LLC and you want to use a professional service, I would at least say make one counseling session. What do you say with Gina, with you all first, just to talk about it, or myself? And then you can, then we can say, hey, yeah, this is the information you want to take to your attorney, right? We're going to say, here's my business plan here. Because like we talked about, the attorney's going to need to know what your business is and what you're doing, right? That's a big thing. So you'll take that business plan and take all your information and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. And so that's important. And so don't pay until you've talked to one of us, please.
Yeah, we're always glad to give that form. And I always tell my clients that form's super easy to fill out. I'm not an attorney, so technically I can't help you, but I can hand it to you. But I always tell them, make sure that you talk to an attorney about your bylaws, though. Because like you mentioned, if you don't have good bylaws, or if you're not following what's in those rules, and I want to turn around and sue somebody that's not been following that, I might go after that nice boat that's in your driveway. Make sure that stuff is correctly. Yeah.
And like you're talking about, that's the other thing. So you go to an attorney online, right? And then you create this LLC, and he's created this operating agreement. Well, that operating agreement might not even apply to anything you do for your business, right? It might say, the secretary's in charge of doing this. The secretary's in charge of doing that. Well, your secretary may not be in charge of doing that. Maybe you may be the president, it may be the president's in charge of doing that. Or, the secretary may be your wife that you've appointed as secretary, but she's not doing that. So you're basically going to end up doing the work yourself. Is what we're trying to say on this operating agreement. Now, if you meet with somebody local and you feel more comfortable working with an attorney that understands your business, I think that's the key, understanding your business. Because if you don't understand your operating agreement and you're not following, it doesn't do you any good to have one, really. I mean,
totally agree. That's what we try to tell our clients. There's a lot of things you can DIY in your business. That is not one that I recommend DIY. So very good. And we've had
follow it and know it. And if you already have an LLC and your attorney and you've already created an operating agreement, go read it. And you can amend it easy. Update it. If you haven't updated I say every year, but every at least 24 months, go read your operating agreement, see if it needs to be updated. Same with your business plan every year to two. Just pull it out and say, hey, throw an amendment to the back of it. Tom left the t-shirt business, put an amendment in there. Tom's no longer with the t-shirt business effective 1/10/2024. Matt is the sole member of the LLC now. We've notified the state of Texas on January 10th, because that puts everybody on notice when you go somewhere and, they say, well, Tom said he owns that operator. No. We put it all right here. Tom was notified by certain lines. Yeah. And it's simple. Just keep up with that stuff. Set yourself a reminder, every 12 months at least, just to update stuff and refresh it. So
Yep, even if you're a single member, sit down and at least go over it once a year. I completely.
Yeah, and the single members, like you said, someday you're going to need that updated information, and you don't want to update 5 years worth to try to protect yourself when just spend seriously 2 hours a year updating that stuff to 5 hours, depending on how complex your business is.
Yep.
And you'll be ahead of the game.
Absolutely, you're good. I know we've got one question in chat. If anybody has any other questions, you're welcome to put them in chat. You're also welcome to unmute yourself. Matt, we've got a question from Kyle. He asked, are there any ongoing fees associated with any of those options that you went over?
There's no ongoing fees like filing fees. There is a yearly filing that you'll I have an LLC. I got mine here. You'll get it the first of the year here. Can't see it. I see it says Texas Comptroller Accountants. You're going to register with the comptroller's office, and they're going to want to know, your revenue. Sales tax we didn't mention either. That's the big one, I think. Make sure you're getting with the Texas Comptroller's office and paying any sales tax that you have to collect. Remember that you have to get a sales tax ID number, and you have to pay those. Depends on how you elect it, monthly, quarterly, but you are a good steward of the taxpayer Texas dollars. So when I first took one of those classes, what they learned is you're collecting a tax on our behalf. You may not even want to put it in your account per se. Just know that you have a running tab with the state of Texas. It's their money you're holding in basically like an escrow that you're going to give to them monthly. You know what I'm saying? So, because I've seen, Jenny, I know you have seen more issues with that falling behind on the state taxes than you do federal taxes or filing fees. Because at first it's only like $250, right? You owe the state of Texas. I'll pay them next month. And think the state of Texas will run interest and fees, and they build up quickly. And the next month you're like, your sales went up. Now you owe 500 plus that 250 plus the fees, and now you're at 750, and it's just so state of Texas. But no, the LLCs, the partnership, state of Texas is reasonable on their fees. They haven't went up, and I can't even remember when. And so
not since I've been here.
So I graduated law school 18 years ago, and I've basically been just about the same since. And so the only thing, the limited partnership is the 750. So, I would, if you don't need a partner limited partnership, you might think twice about that. But other than that, there's no yearly fee to maintain the LLC other than, paying your taxes.
Yeah, thank you. We got two more questions from Dylan, so I'll break it up and ask one at a time. First one he asked, is liability insurance required or recommended for an LLC?
Definitely not required, but highly recommended.
Definitely. Any entity, whether you're a sole proprietor, LLC,
yes, yeah,
always get insurance, yeah.
And that's why sole proprietors work, right? You may not have a lot of personal assets to begin with, but go ahead and get that insurance to protect your personal, your business assets, all of it. And it's usually fairly reasonable. I haven't seen any crazy business quotes unless you got a high risk business.
Yeah.
But it's pretty reasonable for most businesses.
Yep, agree. Whether you're a sole prop or an LLC, if I sue you and I win, you've got to pay up either way. So get that insurance.
Yeah, the veil is going to protect, like we talked about, your business assets from touching over to your personal assets, but it's not going to protect your business assets, right? So your business does something wrong, you have business assets, you want that insurance to cut it off before you get to the business assets.
Certainly, the LLC doesn't prevent you from going out of business in the case that you're sued and they win.
Yeah, your business is liable. People are like, oh, I got an LLC, I'm good. Well, you're good for your personal assets, but not your business assets.
Yeah, absolutely agree. The second half of Dylan's question, he asked, is a single member LLC taxed differently than a multi-member LLC? Is it more like a sole proprietorship or self-employed?
And yes, if you're a single member LLC, you're basically going to file it. It's going to look, if you elect to do it as a S corp, you're going to, unless you change it, it's going to file straight to your 1040 under a Schedule C. Now, if you got multiple members, whatever your draw is or whatever you take from the LLC, you're going to be responsible to file that on your Schedule C. Does that make sense? Make sense to you, Gina?
I think so. Thank you.
Yeah. And if you have any issues where you've got multiple members and You've got tax issues, that's where you want to reach out to the accountant. But like you said, if you're a single member LLC, it flows straight through to your 1040. You're good there. It's pretty straightforward, like a sole proprietorship. So
Yep, agree. And then Kyle asked a question. I'm actually working with Kyle right now, so I can answer it for him. Asked, when he and I have met before, we've talked about errors and omissions insurance. And he asked if that's different from liability insurance. Yes. So errors and omissions is if, so maybe I want to go out and consult privately on my own, and I'm working with Matt to help set up his business, and maybe I overlook something, I inadvertently give some bad advice, and it costs him financially. That's where that particular insurance is going to kick in and protect me. Liability insurance is going to kick in. I go to Matt's t-shirt shop and that piece of equipment falls on me and I physically get hurt. There's some liability there and I want to sue the business. That's where the liability insurance kicks in. A lot of companies will carry both, especially if you're doing something where you're working on paperwork, you're giving any kind of advice. That's where you really
consulting is really where that comes in. Yeah, because that's where you could damage somebody.
And that's where that insurance kicks in. Yeah. Yep. All right.
The general liability, to me, that's an insurance that should it's always highly recommended. We don't say it's required because it's not required by law. But even like you said, if you're a sole proprietorship, just call your insurance agents that you currently have and say, hey, I'm going to open a home business doing t-shirts out back. Can you throw me a general liability policy on there? You'd be surprised how usually cheap that is in a way.
Unless you've got some equipment.
Yeah, unless you got some piece of equipment, but it's not going to cover wear and tear. It's not going to cover your general liability. It's not going to cover, your assets. If it floods or damage like that, you can add that in there. But it's good to have someone comes to visit your t-shirt business out in your building out back, or you hire somebody under 1099 to come make some t-shirts and they burn their hand. You're just glad you have it, right? Your homeowner's policy is going to deny it because it's a business. So anyways, we've seen these little nuances. That's why I throw them out there. You've seen it happen, People are like, this person's good. People are like, you're suing me. You said if I create an LLC and get insurance. I'm like, well, you got general liability, but if the flood came, it doesn't cover that. You've had to have a flood policy to cover assets. So as we're talking about that business insurance, if you want it to cover assets, equipment, all that, make sure you ask those questions. Because most of the time, then they'll ask you. A good agent will ask you, what do you want to, what kind of machinery or equipment you have. That's why I'm saying find a good insurance agent that you can actually talk to. If you get online and buy some business insurance, it is cheap, but you may not have had a conversation with somebody. Does it actually cover machinery and equipment?
Do business with somebody local. They're going to take good care of you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Not somebody that understands your business.
I don't see any more questions. I do want to mention I put the link for the BOI reporting. I put a link in the chat. You might want to take a look at that. And you'll notice on that website, it's not the IRS that's asking for this ownership information. It's the Treasury and it's the Financial Crimes Division. And we've had questions about why is this happening. The whole reason that this is set up is because unfortunately there are a lot of people in the nation that are using LLCs and corporations to shield illegal activity. It's a pretty common way to shield things like financing from human trafficking and from terrorism. They are not targeting you if you're doing things the right way. You have absolutely nothing to be worried about. They just want you to disclose that ownership information.
And the Secretary of State has all this information. It's not going to ask for anything that you haven't already given to the Secretary of State. It's like I said, unfortunately, like she's saying, due to fraud and crimes, they're trying to get everyone to register in there for the legit business owners to protect you from the fraudulent ones and people stealing information, identities. It's unfortunately it's too easy to do right now. So we're hopefully
very easy. So that's all that is. Make sure you get signed up. I recommend when you go on that homepage, there's a link kind of in the middle and you can sign up for their newsletter. I signed up because this is all relatively new and they are still updating the rules. That's rolling out. I recommend signing up for that. They don't spam you. It's really informative emails. They're good to have.
If you're an existing business, you might just wait a few months, see how things kind of shake out. You got till January 2025. If you're an existing business, if you're a new business, like you said, definitely don't let that 90 days pass. Go in there and do it. Yeah, it's just general information. And I think it's pretty neat because, as you'll know, if you ever create an LLC, you'll create multiple LLCs. You can create that ID number. And so you can register all your businesses pretty quick. Just put that ID number in there. And so, yeah. If you have any questions with any of this, feel free to call us anytime, anywhere. Gina and I are here Monday through Friday. Sometimes Gina works on Saturdays and Sundays too. So.
We all do. We'll get it out. And you all, everyone who signed up, you'll get a recording of the webinar. Our student intern, Aaliyah, is the one who edits that down for us. That is not one of my talents. Aaliyah is out, I think, on a mission trip for a few more days. So I just want you to know you will get the recording. It'll just be delayed a couple of days. We'll have that in email to you. And thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to pop up right quick. Got to get to my survey. I've only got a couple of questions for you. That's part of our agreement with the SBA, just to make sure that we are doing our job correctly. So we appreciate any feedback that you can give us on this. If you are not already a client of the SBDC, we are glad to meet with you at any time, help answer questions, whether you're starting or expanding that small business. If you're in the Panhandle, you would be working with our office. If you're not in the Panhandle, you're still welcome to give us a call. I mentioned that we have got SBDCs all across the United States. There's 1,100 centers. Matt's got a lot of us to deal with, and we can get you set up with the SBDC in your area. If you do need to contact us, our info will be in that email, but I'll go ahead and give you the email as well. It is info@wtsbdc.com. And we're ending 4 minutes early, I think.
And I got one quick question for you, Gina, because I saw that question in the chat that Kyle put in there. Is it still 10 years is it 5 years for a sole proprietor?
10 years.
10, it's still 10. Okay, it's 10 years still. Nothing's changed.
Yep, nothing has changed. So when you file those with the county clerk's office, so their role in those is just to record that. Put it as part of public records. They don't keep up with your record for you. They automatically expire in 10 years. So somehow 10 years from when you file that, you need to remember to go back and just refile a new one. I don't know, I would say like put a reminder in your Google Calendar, but in 10 years, we'll probably have like a calendar built into like a chip in my hand or something. I don't know.
Always somewhere in the class before, I've always taught it. Somebody says they'll bring it up. They'll be like, "Oh my God, I've been in business for 10 years." I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, but if you go down there and ask them to file renewal, I'm sure they'll take care of it. So
yep, no, we see that all the time. People that have been up in a business for many years, and I understand in 10 years you can get to refile that.
Yes, for sure. So, anyways.
Thank you all so much for joining us and spending the day with us. I hope we see you next month. Next month, we will be joined by Reagan Koenig. She is a fractional CFO. You'll get to learn what a fractional CFO is. And she's going to show you how to, some quick tips and trips. Goodness, I can't speak. Tips and tricks for increasing revenue and profit in your business. And we'll have a link to sign up to that in the follow-up that you get. So thank you all. Have a wonderful afternoon.